First of all, I apologize for the English. I am a gringo from South Africa, but still a gringo. I feel very emotional after that song. I am very privileged to speak after those two men, and I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me a few brief minutes to express some ideas, and also Adriana Castellaso, who invited me here. I have the ability to make you feel excited, to make you feel grief, sorrow, rage, romance, and hate. Why do I have so much power? Am I God? No, I'm a filmmaker. People like myself have developed our craft over decades to play the human body like an instrument, to get people to feel things. Those of you who understand music know that if you play in a major key versus a minor key, it has a different effect on the body. Some examples, for instance, are D major, triumphant, victorious; F minor, gloomy, passionate resentment; G major, serious, magnificent fantasy; or G minor, discontent, uneasiness. I didn't know these things when I was a child, despite my grandfather owning an advertising agency, my father being a copywriter, and my stepfather being in radio. These understandings would come to me much later. I grew up as a child in South Africa in a pretty bad time, apartheid-era South Africa. And there were a lot of racial injustices happening at that time. White people had tremendous privilege. Black people had very little. In fact, a white person could actually kill a black person with very little consequence. So growing up in this era, I felt this enormous desire to change things. This was at 6. I was very young. I remember at one point hearing a piece of music. It was drum music. I think it was Zulu drum music. And I was so moved, I got the cassette and I played it again and again and again. And I found some old tin cans and I was banging on the drums like a child, looking at the bush where I grew up, and I was filled with this beautiful sensation, a feeling of completion and a feeling of wholeness. And I remember thinking, if everybody could feel this feeling, they wouldn't kill each other and they wouldn't be mean to each other. So at 9 years old, I came up with a great plan. I was going to build the biggest speakers ever created to get my whole country to hear the music so they would stop doing the things they're doing. I was 9, so I didn't know how to do that. But when I was 13, I saw the movie Star Wars. And that's when I realized I'd found my speakers, I'd found my vehicle to express what I wanted to express. And so obsessed was I with Star Wars that I eventually ended up marrying an actress from Star Wars. And I'm not joking, I'm serious. I found that film was hypnotic. It had an ability to do something. And there have been brain studies that show when you wire somebody's brain up and you have them look at reality versus a 2D or imaginative event, the same nerve cells fire. They can't tell the difference between what's really going on and their imagination or a 2D event. So what I began to understand is that media can become indistinguishable from reality. That is amazing and that is terrifying. Because what I began to understand is media is a tool. It can be used any way you want. And what do I mean by a tool? A hammer is a tool. You can build a house or you can kill someone. I saw uses of this tool pretty early on. I was a news cameraman in South Africa in my 20s. And one day I shot something in a township, in a poor township outside of Johannesburg, and I saw somebody get attacked. And I documented it, and I handed it off to the producer, and I went home, and that night I watched the news. And my footage was there. Except my footage was shorter, and things had been reversed. And what had happened was that some political faction was blamed for the attack. But it wasn't them. It was the police. I was there. I saw who did it. And I was horrified because I realized in that moment, my work was being misused. And I saw that my country was being formed with disinformation. Some of you may find this familiar. There are also good things, though, that I saw. We didn't have television until 1976, and the reason, I believe, was to try to keep a lot of open-mindedness out of our country. Nevertheless, in 1976, we got television, 3 hours a day in the evening, that was it. And censorship was very tight. But one thing did actually make it through the censors. In the 80s, the American show The Cosbys made it past the censors, which was amazing. I wasn't sure how that happened. What happened was extraordinary. People, both black and white, saw on television an example of a black family that was working class, middle class, intelligent, funny, and it began to transform the way South Africans saw black people. So I saw also there could be a really good use. The way we use media in our society has a really profound effect, and it's a very important effect. And I want to show you a video. I've been part of the development of a company called the Knife of Aristotle. And what the Knife of Aristotle does is it analyzes the written word. So I'd like to show you a video that I made for that company. Information is everywhere. This year, billions of people will spend $1.6 trillion on some form of media consumption. Media is the classroom of our age. From childhood to adulthood, you're force-fed information, regardless of whether it's true or not. This enforced information becomes the basis of what you believe about the world. Based on this, you invest hard-earned money. You believe you're okay or not okay. People are put in power. Information can encourage hatred and fear. Information can start wars and convince communities of virtually anything. Media can turn criminals into celebrities and principled men and women into villains. We are a civilization bloated on force-fed misinformation that's been twisted, skewed, turned, spun, selected, omitted, distorted, manipulated, warped, rearranged, falsified, and garbled. To make the most important decisions in your life, wouldn't you want real information? Some have worked tirelessly and risked their lives to expose corruption, bring massacres to light, and inspire nations towards freedom. What if we had standards? Instead of dishonor and misinformation, what if we could wield this immensely powerful tool nobly? What if you could never be force-fed again? Our mission is to do exactly that. I invite you to go to ethicalmedia.org if you'd like to see that video again. I know there's a lot of bass here. It's hard to hear my voice. Some people go through life as passive members of society, just letting things go by. What is, it's all fine. You in this room are in the enviable position of having enormous power. Those of you in media are directors of our society. What you say is what people take in. And so, of course, you always have a choice. Are you going to use the tool to divide and conquer or pull people together? Now, that's a really good recognition. Wow, let's just make good news. Let's put out good stuff. Let's not put out bad stuff. But that's an oversimplification. It's not that simple. There's a subtlety. The creator of the media has to be addressed. Let's say you have an eye for an eye kind of belief. Now, I want to appeal to your your baser instincts, not this polite thing that we often do with each other. Deep down inside, when somebody, excuse my French, pisses you off, don't you sometimes feel, if you screw with me, I screw with you? Deep down. Now, have you ever seen a child grow up in a punishing household, where the child is punished and punished and punished to try to turn them into a good little member of civilization? What does that child turn into? Punishing adult. Have you ever seen a society that uses force to try and bring about love? They punish everybody until finally you have this perfect society. As a journalist friend of mine once said, calm is not peace. If you believe these things deep down in your programming, you will create media that has that message as well. I'll give you one more example. Take US action hero movies. Not all of them, but some of them. What's one of the general stories? A guy meets a beautiful woman, and they have a beautiful baby. They're setting you up for loss. Then what happens is another guy or a group of guys goes and kills the woman and the baby. And then what does our hero do? Kills everybody. Because it kind of feels good to take out all those people. So what's happening is the filmmakers are enrolling people in hatred. If you do this as well, multiply that by 1 million if you're using media. Because that's the amount of power you have. You have the ability to divide people if you want to. Rich against poor, different colors against each other, political parties against each other. I really would like you to see Encender el Corazon tonight. I think it's 7:30 at Cinepolis, I believe, tonight. I invite you to come and see it. I will be there. Mr. Tony Zaratini will be there, I believe, as well. Because there's a distinction that we make in the film, and that distinction didn't come from me. That distinction came from American scientist Keith Raniere, who's in the film as well, who helped me tremendously. And the distinction he made was not between political parties and classes, but between those committed to hate and those not committed. I'm going to show you a trailer of the film. It's a little old, we're working on a new one, but just to give you a sense of this film.
Hemos vivido pues muy tranquilos aquí en Galeana por muchos años. Cuando estamos aquí casi sentimos que hasta la tierra nos reconoce, nos saluda.
A mi hermano y a mi mejor amigo les habían arrancado la vida con una bala en la cabeza.
A mí sí me llegó a producir placer, satisfacción.
Mereció la necesidad.
¿Cuál de los dos quieres que te mande primero?
Oiga, señor.
Mañana no me juntas,
Señor.
hijo muerto para que me paguen por el otro pendejo.
¿Que no te han dicho? Se llevaron a tu hijo Eric.
Ahí los sentaron a los dos. Ahí estaba toda la sangre de él.
You don't have a home, you just don't realize it. You have to win your home back.
Si pagamos, lo único que vamos a hacer es de mañana que nos vuelvan a quitar el mismo dinero. Lo más fácil para un individuo es venir a quitarte el derecho a la vida. Si lo hacemos, financiamos cuando menos otros 3 secuestros. Yo absolutamente no pago un secuestro, ni por favor quiero que lo paguen por mí.
Si yo tendré que dar mi vida, mis hijos, lo haré para vivir en principios correctos.
Nosotros estamos diciendo ni un secuestro más. Todos me dicen que no dé la cara, pero alguien la tiene que dar y no lo estoy haciendo por héroe, porque de que tengo miedo tengo mucho.
Yo quiero morir siendo esclavo de los principios, no de los hombres.
Si no enfrentamos esto con valentía y con fuerza, no se va a parar.
What you want to do is you want to snuff out the motivation for violence in Mexico. So what you want to do is you want to take the air out of it.
Hace 200 años, México tuvo que luchar. Hace 100 años tuvieron que volver a luchar. Esta vez nomás queremos luchar diferente.
Is there a way to use offensive nonviolence?
A peaceful revolution that extricates crime from common everyday life? Yes.
Va a ser una batalla muy difícil. Pero si lo hacemos bien, va a tener un efecto que va a durar más de 100 años esta vez.
I encourage you all to come to the theater tonight at 7:30. The film takes you on a journey from darkness to hope. And what it helps you do, I believe, is see the different sides of the conflict and see some incredible people that have stood up to violence. To build a bridge of hope, though, we need to shift our perspective. We need to work on the creator of media. So I ask you to do two things. First, please come see the film. If you've seen it already, tell other people. If you see it tonight, still tell other people. And number two, address any beliefs you have that would cause you to promote division with media. We in this room, involved in media, have a deep responsibility of how we use the tool. We can weaponize media, or we can use it to build bridges between other humans and see people, not just objects. We have the power. You have the power. And remember, hate is the easiest thing in the world. Building a bridge is much harder and takes much more courage. I invite you to build bridges with me. Thank you.